views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Voices of Women is a talk radio show that gives voice to the personal stories of women. It will inspire women and enlighten men to follow their dreams and create positive changes in their lives. Whether the audience listens to best-selling authors or a layperson like themselves, they'll realize there are others with similar experiences and feelings to their own. This show will give women tools they can use every day, which will empower them to step out of their boxes and create the changes they desire in their life. Kris inspires women to find their voices, speak up, and become leaders of their own life. Everyone has their gifts to share with the world, and it's time for women to work together to bring honor and respect to the feminine voice, which is within all people, men and women. Topics include personal growth, spirituality, creativity, leadership, and divine feminine. Now here's your host, Kris Steinnes.
Well, welcome to Voices of Women, and happy Friday, everybody. We just had International Women's Day this week. I hope everyone found a way to celebrate and honor women. I was at a salon where we had singing and some entertainment and people sharing, and a lot of that was an honoring of women, and that was great. Also, this is the first live show since the Women of Wisdom Conference was completed in February, mid-February, which was fabulous. WOW 2017 was our 25th year, and also my last as the leader of WOW, as I am retiring. I don't even know if I announced that on air. It was just kind of recent, just before conference, and now I have a new definition for retirement. It is re-tire, get new wheels to take me new places, because I'm not really going to be retiring from life. So I like that because I like change and new things, and I'm going to get some new wheels. So I'm looking forward to training a new group of dedicated people to continue the legacy, and will be involved, of course, in the transition this year. And we're having a meeting this Tuesday night, March 14th. If you're in the Seattle area, contact us at WOW if you want to participate, and I can send you information on where it is in North Seattle. Just email wow@womenofwisdom.org. So today my guest is Roberta Grimes. She is a business attorney, novelist, and speaker from Austin, Texas. And when she grew up, she had two extraordinary experiences of light. And she spent decades studying nearly 200 years of communications from the dead and other afterlife-related evidence that eventually enabled her to assemble an in-depth understanding of who and what we are, how reality works, the nature of God, and the meaning and purpose of our lives. Which, we all go questioning that throughout our lives, trying to figure out, why are we here? And she realized that 2,000 years ago, Jesus had told us things about God, reality, death, the afterlife, and the meaning and purpose of human life that are amazingly validated by modern afterlife evidence. So she's written a series of books to share the information with us. She's got The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, and we're going to talk with her about her third book, The Fun of Growing Forever, and where she explains the teachings of Jesus, and it's a simple guide to growing spiritually, and so that's what we're going to talk about with Roberta today. So welcome, Roberta.
Oh, I'm so glad to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, and I think you were on the show before, so you're probably not new to my audience. First, tell us your experiences of light as a child, or just a brief. We love stories, so maybe you can share, because that was your inspiration for moving into this area.
Yeah, it was everything. When I was 8 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night and realized there's no God, and I was terrified. In the midst of my fear, there was a bright light in my room, a flash of light, and a voice said, "You wouldn't know what it is to have me if you didn't know what it is to be without me. I will never leave you again." And at the time, my thought was, oh, that's handy. If you forget there's a God, they remind you, and I went back to sleep. But it's in the nature of these experiences that they stay immediately in your mind. That was more than 60 years ago. It feels as if it just happened last night. And because this kind of experience stays ever present in your mind, I wanted to know where it came from. But it's also in the nature of these experiences that you never tell anybody about them. I didn't talk about it till I was in my 40s. Mm-hmm. So that began my voyage, and everything I've done since really has been first to try to understand that experience, and then to try to share with people what I've learned.
So And like this series of book, you have become passionate about understanding the afterlife and the implications of all that. Why is that such a passion for you?
Because it's all good news. And reality is love-based. Reality is all based in consciousness. It's nothing like what scientists think. Even this, your solid desk is not solid. Scientists know that. They just don't talk about it. And it's all based in a continuum, sort of a spectrum. The highest vibration being love, the lowest vibration being fear. Now, I think all of our religions are fear-based. Christianity certainly is heavily fear-based. So they lower our spiritual vibration. They don't increase our spiritual vibration, and that's been a problem. If people wonder why the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket, it's largely because the spiritual vibrations of all the individuals on this planet are much lower than they should be, and the aggregate of that is very dangerous. So I'm trying to help to raise that vibration by telling people there's nothing to be afraid of. God is indeed perfect love, and our minds are eternal. We never began, we never will end. That's a fact. And because that's the case, it's all good news. It turns life from a tragedy into a comedy.
Well, you've just said a lot there that we can play with and talk about. So you talk about religions, and one of your statements in your book is no religion puts spiritual growth first. And so I know one of your messages is about spiritual growth, and you mentioned raising the vibration. And many people are working on this area. I mean, I'm in a spiritual community that we're working on raising vibration, and it is that love vibration. And yet we see so much fear, it's driven by fears. Hate and fear and war and all that impacts our vibration. If we go into fear about those things, then we've lowered our vibration. And so what are some of the problems? Anything more you want to say about religions before we move on to the good news?
Well, the problem with religions is that they're based in what people thought, believed, and knew. 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Christianity was assembled in the year 325 by the Council of Nicaea. And really, to try to bring it forward even a little bit in time is heresy. Well, in what other area of our lives do we allow ourselves to be bound by what people thought 1,700 years ago? It doesn't make any sense. But there are reasons why people cling to Christianity, even though we've discovered there's none of it. None of what Christianity teaches is true. None of it. However, Jesus in the Gospels, as you stole my thunder when you said we've discovered he knew all the stuff we're learning now, and he knew it 2,000 years ago. So we can prove he's real. But he came for a different purpose. He came to end religions, not to start another one.
Well, and that's a fascinating idea because, you might have some leaders in religious organizations who would tend to argue with you. But I think what you're trying to say is that getting back to the actual teachings, the true word, the true teachings of Jesus.
Yes.
And that gets lost sometimes in the dogma of religions.
Oh, yes. I mean, religions make up stories because and it's not their fault. It's not the people who started these religions tried their best, but there's no possible way that the people that Jesus was talking to could have understood what he was saying because they didn't have the benefit of what we know now. And the Apostle Paul was dealing with a disaster. The Messiah had just been murdered, and in the most horrible way. And now what? Here were all this scattered flock. He had to bring them together. He brought them together by doing what Jesus said not to do, by packaging Jesus' teachings inside first century Judaism. That's what Christianity is to this day. It's a first century Jewish sect. And the teachings that the people preach in churches are all first century Judaism. And that's not good now because it's helping to lower our vibration, not increase it. But the great thing for Christians, which I have been a deeply devout Christian all my life, as you can imagine, if you think God spoke to you when you were 8, it makes you one heck of a Christian. But I've come to understand that the way Christianity is practiced is not only not what Jesus intended, but it's highly damaging. We've got to follow Jesus if we want to be a Christian, and only Jesus.
Mm-hmm. And so there's this realization that the teachings of Jesus is what works to foster our spiritual growth. So, And that it's an effective method for achieving a rapid spiritual growth. So share with how that's changed your life.
Oh, completely. You would not have liked me before, I have to say. No, the thing is that Jesus came to give us a very easy system for growing spiritually. He says that if we will learn to love perfectly, learn to forgive completely, we will bring the kingdom of God on earth. It's all in the Gospels. And he tells us in the Gospels, Jesus, that God doesn't judge us. Jesus doesn't judge us. There's so many things he says that the people who put the Bible together ignore, and to this day Christian denominations ignore. So if you put all of that stuff aside and you only follow the teachings, it's relatively easy. Within months, you can raise your vibration by a lot. How do you know that's happening? Because there's a peace that starts in you. I liken it to the feeling of, I used to be very reactive. You could make me mad so easily, and don't ever get near me on the road because that was a dangerous place to be. I was really high-strung. But after I had been first practicing the forgiveness lesson, and then after that the love lesson, I started to be so peaceful. Not only was I driving well, but it's as if you've got all these levers on the outside that people can fiddle with and just make you crazy. You know, your mother-in-law, or, you know, that store that you can never find what you want, all these things in your life that bug you. And when you learn radical, complete, provenient forgiveness that is eternal, and you never ever are bothered again, when you learn that, it all gets disconnected on the inside somehow, and you always feel peaceful and joyous and loving. That becomes your home, that sense of profound peace. And it doesn't even take long. That's why I'm amazed that the churches have never actually tried the teachings, because they work so well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we're going to go more into that. It's you know, we all want that peace of mind, and that feeling of, you know, that feeling that you're talking about. And yet we get thrown by the external, you know, like you say, when you're driving, or when people say, and we get, you know, it impacts us, and then we go into reaction, and then we don't like how we're feeling, and change on that. So we're going to talk more about this when we come back. We can take a short break, and then we'll come back and talk more with Roberta Grimes.
Gifted intuitive healer and spiritual teacher Sarah Luce brings her unique style to the hit show Small Steps, Big Breakthrough Radio on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Tune in each month as Sarah turns reality on end and shows us how to experience expansive results with simple yet powerful steps. Expect an enlightening bend on what you currently believe is possible. For show details and upcoming topics, visit SarahLuce.com. That's SarahLoos.com.
Miss any shows during the week? Don't worry, we've got you covered. With the free Transformation Talk Radio app, you'll have access to all of the past week's shows in the palm of your hand. Tune in to Transformation Talk Radio anywhere you go with our free app for any of your devices. Check out our app in the App Store and Google Play Store today.
Are you ready for a game changer? Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Sarah brings you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Tune in to Business Game Changers Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
To see your life from an angel's perspective, book a personal consultation with Claire Candy Huff, Angelic Walk-In Angel Ariel at Angel Healing House. Candy provides intuitive counseling, Reiki, and angel readings in person in Los Angeles or nationally and internationally via phone or Skype. She will channel the practical tools you need to transform your life. Call now, 831-277-3716 or visit angelhealinghouse.com.
When your body is awakened, your spirit comes alive. Dana Canetto is a transformational guide, embodiment coach, and spiritual mentor assisting women in realigning with their truth and embodying who they are by connecting to the wisdom of their body. Tune in every month on Transformation Talk Radio and the Dr. Pat Show Network for Body Divinity Radio with Dana Canetto. For more information on Dana and her services, visit danacanetto.com. That's DANACANNETO.com.
Kris Steinnes is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
Welcome back to Voices of Women. I'm Kris Steinnes, and I'm talking with Roberta Grimes, author of The Fun of Growing Forever. So we've been talking about this spiritual teachings of Jesus and about raising a vibration and all this. So let's talk about the key teachings, and you really focus these on the book, and that's gratitude, forgiveness, and universal love. So let's talk about gratitude, because in the book you talk about that as being the first step. So tell us about that and the importance of that, and how you've incorporated that in your life. I'm kind of thinking, as we were talking in the break, like it's great to say that, and it's great to have a gratitude practice, and yet how often do we fall back and forget to be grateful?
Yeah, I think that gratitude is most useful when you use it as part of this program, because then it stays with you. The great thing about what Jesus taught us is that it raises your spiritual vibration in a permanent way. It's very self-reinforcing. And when you begin this practice with a gratitude process, what I I don't even do it anymore, don't need to, was a gratitude journal. And I tell people that's the best thing to do. Every day, write down one thing you're grateful for and why you're grateful for it, and then you can go about your day. And for the first month, that's not that hard, but then you get down to having to find something new to be grateful for. And that's when it gets interesting, because you start being grateful for negative things, for hard lessons, for the fact that the neighbor's dog made you crazy, made you wake up in the middle of the night, and so you saw, or late in the night, and you saw a beautiful sunrise. All those sort of little moments in your life that you really never paid attention to, you so kind of look for, because you need them to put in your gratitude journal. I did mine for less than 2 months because I was very into the forgiveness practice then, and I didn't need it anymore because I was starting to appreciate the fact that there are so many things to appreciate that we just take for granted. And that's one of the great things about a gratitude practice. You start really noticing the good in everything around you, even the things that might have irritated you.
Yeah, there's lessons there, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're driving and you're upset because you're in traffic, but then you realize, oh, now I have the time to finish that audiobook, or now I have the time to, call someone or listen to the radio and hear songs I haven't heard in a long time. You start finding reasons why everything is good. Mm-hmm. And that is great for getting you ready to learn to forgive, which is the hard lesson.
Yeah, and it's like the saying, the glass is half full instead of half empty. And there are people in your life that are just they always go the negative route. They always, oh, this is so bad and this horrible thing happened to me. And, they're not fun to be around.
Yeah, and the hardest part really is it's not fun to be a person like that.
Yeah.
I mean, however unhappy they make us, they're making themselves even more miserable. That's the hard part.
That's true. And you see that. And you see how it's impacting their life. But that's one of the lessons of, talk about the spiritual growth. That's one of the lessons we're here to learn.
That's right. And that, make no mistake, the dead tell us we are here to learn and grow spiritually, and that's exactly what Jesus says too. So we can confirm that's why the universe exists. It's a place for us to learn and grow, and that's it. That's why all of it's here. So let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, there's also something I think that what I've learned in my spiritual studies is these are lessons that we, in some regards, can only have as a human being in a physical form. That we come here for because we can have these kinds of lessons.
Yes. It seems that our spiritual nature is such, our minds are such, that we grow best from experiences. It's possible to grow spiritually in what we think of as the afterlife. It's really real life. It's possible there to learn and grow spiritually, but it's much slower. It's frustratingly slow because it's like, you go to the gym to strengthen your muscles. We come here to strengthen our spiritual muscles. And there's nothing to push against there. There's no gym. It's just peace, love, light, joy, happiness, fun, and every positive good thing. So there's nothing that will help you grow there. It's too hard. That's why we come here. We don't want to come, except we come because we forget how hard it is, and then we get here. You wonder why babies cry. They're saying, "Oh my goodness, I don't believe I did this to myself."
Here I am again.
Yeah, I'm doing this again. I swore I would never come back, which we all do when we leave. But then we just crave growing.
Yeah. And I think there's a sense of people who are raising their vibration. There's a real reason for us to be here now. There's so much work to be done, and it's a very important time. And so if you realize that, you can stay on track of all these things. Well, the next step that we really want to get into a lot is forgiveness. And that's probably one of the hardest things. And you state if we fail to forgive, it will block our spiritual growth.
Totally. Yep, so it does.
So talk to us about that.
Well, the problem is we try to do what I call bespoke forgiveness, like bespoke suits are measured for you. Every time something happens that irritates you, then you make yourself forgive it. And that is impossible because it means each new thing that bothers you, you've sort of got to wrestle it down and make yourself forgive it. And it's a very adversarial, almost angry practice. I know, I tried it. You just can't. It doesn't work. So what you've got to do is retrain your mind not to react, because the need to forgive comes purely from the fact that your mind is reacting to things you've taught it to react to. You used to get upset in traffic. You taught your mind, here's something to get upset about. So that's why you become a crazy driver, because it just gets worse. You taught yourself to be upset that your mother-in-law was a certain way, or that, you don't like stores, whatever it is. So what I did in desperation one day when I was having trouble forgiving something that had happened on the road was I just gathered it all up with my arms, just gathered it up and made it into a ball and even put myself in it. Mentally sort of put everything in that ball that's bugging you. And then you push it away and you say, I love you, I bless you, I forgive, and I release, and you really mean it. And when I started doing that, what I realized pretty quickly was that I was doing it less. Fewer things were bothering me. It took me a while to understand why. And remember, I just said we come here as if we're coming to the gym? We have enormously greater and more powerful minds than we know. But when we come here, just as you go to the gym, you strip down to a T-shirt and shorts. We strip down to what is estimated to be maybe 10% of our eternal mind that we have access to when we're here on a conscious level. And that mind is primed for learning. The way they prime us for learning is this. Our minds are very lazy. If you don't react to what they give you, pretty soon your mind will stop giving you whatever it is. Oh, you're not going to react when people cut you off in traffic? Well, then you stop even noticing that they cut you off in traffic because your mind is lazy. Your mind is habitual, which it has to be. Otherwise, you'd have to rethink every day how to open a door. And your mind is very adaptable to new habits. If you change the way you react to what it's giving you, it will very quickly accept the new reaction you want it to have. It is amazing how fast it happens. If you sincerely do this forgiveness ball practice, whenever anything bugs you for a month, you'll find almost nothing will ever bother you again. And what's beautiful about it is, since you've changed your mind's reaction to the things that used to upset you, what it does is mean that nothing is ever going to upset you. The things that used to bother you, you'll still notice, but it'll be like, oh, that happened. You don't get upset about it. You become so relaxed and peaceful inside, and it doesn't take long.
Yes, and that's that peace that we're striving for, that peace of mind that we're not, because when we do have those irritations, that fills our mind. That when we obsess about it, we think it over and over, and then you also think. And I think I'm going to go into our before we have a few minutes before the break, is self-forgiveness is probably one of the hardest things. I mean, how many times we rehash things in our mind? I wish I said this. I wish I hadn't said that, and beating ourselves up.
Yep. Yes. And which is why I suggest to people that they put themselves in that ball as well. Just jump in there and forgive yourself while you're forgiving everybody else. There are some, if you really have serious things you've got to forgive yourself about, then there's extra work that you can do. But for most people, just the general overall beginning to try to forgive everything makes your mind relax about who you are and what you are as well. You start cutting yourself more slack just as you cut the rest of the world more slack. I should add that I've recently heard that there's another trick that almost works as well as forgiveness balls, and that is a spoon in your pocket. Every time something bothers you, rather than reacting, you immediately take a spoon out of your pocket and put it in your other pocket. And then you go about your day. And for some reason, that apparently works too. For this, it distracts your mind. It gets your mind out of this mode of being angry and into the mode of moving the spoon. And because your mind is so simple and so lazy while you're on Earth, that seems to work. I don't think it works as fast, but apparently it works as well.
I never heard of that before, but that's an interesting thought. Just move the spoon. So, and I think, and also, I mean, this takes practice. You're talking about really retraining your brain and to be constantly on alert, constantly aware. I mean, you're really talking about self-awareness here. And we're so bombarded and distracted by the external world that, I can see people just going, oh, that's too much to do. I couldn't ever possibly forgive everything. It's constant, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so what
the first thing you do is you set aside a month. The second thing you do is you don't watch TV, you don't go to the movies, you don't do, and if there are people who especially irritate you, you don't see them, because you first got to teach your mind that we're going to change our reactions. Your mind is a little bit slow to understand that. So let's forgive the easier stuff first. Mm-hmm. But you'll find that if you'll give yourself that month to learn forgiveness, it'll be very much easier to go back to whatever it is that used to make you crazy, and it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
You'll still have to make a few more forgiveness balls. I can't tell you how easy this is. And it's hard. It seems like a little bit of work, but think how much effort we put into being irritated day in and day out. And that's a lot of work too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So this actually could be easier. Well, this is Kris Steinnes, and we're going to take another break. We'll come back and talk more with Roberta Grimes about universal love.
Do you feel that there's a bigger, better life for you? Is there anything holding you back from living the life you were meant to live? If you'd like to find your life's true purpose and calling, join the world's foremost authority on primal spirituality, David Carshare, in Becoming a Sun Radio, emotional and spiritual intelligence for a happy, fulfilling life. Tune in once a month to Becoming a Sun Radio with David Carshare on The Dr. Pat Show and Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit davidcarshare.com today.
Are you traveling most of your day? Do you want to take Transformation Talk Radio with you anywhere you go? Well, guess what? There's an app for that. Just go to the App Store on your Apple device or the Google Play Store on your Android and search Transformation Talk Radio. Catch all of our live shows no matter where you are. Thanks for listening.
If you're dealing with fear and anxiety, you've probably noticed that the more you fight these emotions, the stronger they seem to get. Dr. Friedemann Schaub, the author of The Fear and Anxiety Solution, explains that instead of suppressing, we need to identify and resolve the deeper subconscious root causes of fear and anxiety. His personal breakthrough program has helped thousands worldwide to overcome their emotional challenges. To learn more, visit thefearandanxietysolution.com and schedule your free consultation with Dr. Schaub now.
Tune in to the hit show Master's Chambers with your trusted friend, Connie Fife. Mondays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Each week, Connie will connect you with the best of the best thought leaders from around the globe to share their strategies and best practices. Getting better together. To book Connie, visit ConnieFifeSpeaks.com.
Be you plus live your purpose equals joy. That's the motto of Unstuck Joy with Vicki Todd. Vicki believes you were born with gifts that are meant to make the world brighter. Each show will feature an art visioning journal prompt to help you create your way to soul clarity. If you're ready to get unstuck and create more joy, this show is for you. Tune in every month on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit VickiWorldArt.com.
Kris Steinnes is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
Welcome back to Voices of Women. I'm Kris Steinnes. I'm talking with Roberta Grimes, author of The Fun of Growing Forever. So, Roberta, you're making this fun. I mean, I think that's why this is the fun series. And so I love it that you're approaching this from it's fun.
Yes, it really is. People think of spiritual growth as sort of churchy and boring. But in fact, what spiritual growth feels like is being in love all the time. It makes you the happiest you can possibly be because, of course, the higher your spiritual vibratory rate, the more perfectly loving you are and you feel. You start feeling as if you're in love with all the world. And here's a great secret, which kind of amazed me. When you master universal forgiveness, love comes naturally. You don't even have to work at it. If you start, I first realized how transformed I was becoming when I noticed that I would look at perfect strangers on the street and I would love them. I would feel compassion for them, and I was sort of you love in a different way when you have gotten rid of all the other stuff that the resentments and the angers and the other negative things. It's astonishing, but it does make you happy. It makes you the happiest you can be to raise yourself spiritually.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about people walking, there's times when you go to a party or you see someone walking in, whether it's walking down the street or walking in a store, exuding that kind of peacefulness and that kind of love. And so you're saying it's coming from that place of they have done their work. They've done their spiritual work on forgiveness, that they are welcoming, they're like open, like Jesus was, open arms to everybody.
It makes you much more like Jesus was, always peaceful. That's right. And people will tell me there are things you can't forgive. Someone murdered my child, or someone did this or did. It turns out that forgiveness doesn't even need to be scaled, because none of this is real. This is not real life. This is an afternoon in the gym. That's all it is. If someone murdered your child is fine, healthy, happy, and waiting for you. I mean, this is just like a bad afternoon in the gym. So everything can be forgiven because, of course, forgiveness isn't for the other person. It never is. And you're not approving of anything they did. Forgiveness is the gift you give yourself so that you're finally free of that and it can't get in the way of your spiritual growth. That's why we set these negative things to happen to us, to give us the opportunity to learn to forgive without worrying about the fact that that's a big thing to forgive. You can forgive anything. Anything. Mm-hmm.
When you read stories about that, people visiting, the perpetrator in prison who killed their daughter or whatever, and understand that this is not an easy thing to do, and it's a lot of work because there's so much pain and grief around it, and yet it's about releasing that pain and grief too. It's a journey to get there. It's not going to happen overnight.
If you do the forgiveness exercises, you don't react in the same way when something like that happens, because your first reaction is that it's almost like there's a disturbance in the force, and your first reaction is you want to heal that. You want to put love into the space where this horrible thing is. And you want to love the person who did it. You want to love, of course, your child and the other people who are grieving. But grief feels different if you have learned to forgive everything. You don't dwell on it. Yes, it's painful, and you'll never get over that loss in a fundamental way. But it isn't. It's a sadness. It's not a tragedy if you have raised your vibration enough to deal with it. So this is just a useful tool to get through life better. I think that's important to point out. It's nothing more than making yourself the best and most powerful person you can be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to talk about the universal love. So, okay. And you state in your book that it's not marital love, parental love, love of our pets. It's so easy to love our pets, and we think that's the purest of love. You love this unconditional, the pet has unconditional love. And you're saying that that's not universal love. So what is universal love? Universal love is not specific. A Course in Miracles calls the love we have for individuals what special loves, and actually says that they are as counterproductive as our special hates. They both are in the same place. They single out one person or one animal or something for special treatment, when what we are meant to be doing is learning how to love humankind universally. We now understand, as I think I said, that consciousness is the only thing that exists. Eternal mind. Max Planck discovered that. He was a quantum physicist, for heaven's sake. But all of our minds are part of that eternal mind. So in a very important way, all our minds are part of what we think of as God, and all our minds are part of one another. In a very real sense, there's only one of us here. So when you look at another person, I don't care who it is, you're looking at yourself. That's why Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. He didn't say love your neighbor as if he were yourself. Love your neighbor because your neighbor is yourself. And once you get past the forgiveness lesson, that starts to happen naturally. I can't really adequately express how different that feels, but I no longer look at anybody with a sense of I don't know, aversion or judgment or disapproval or anything. I look at people all trying to their best with their lessons, and I love them more than you can imagine. It's different. It's very different. But loving individuals is not what it's about. Loving everybody equally is what it's about. Mm-hmm. And so that's what Jesus was trying to teach us. I mean, That's why you're saying Jesus' teachings is how we spiritually grow, and our spiritual path towards that, whether it's for, gratitude, forgiveness, and universal love are the three principles that, and you hear that. I mean, even when you go to church, those are, there's all those things, and yet there's all the muddy things that kind of go with it that people react to, and why they, a lot of people don't go to church anymore because of the other stuff that's around it. But if you get down to the pure essence of these things, the pure essence of forgiving and being grateful and loving and making that our journey of discovering what it means to be a spiritual being in a human body, so to speak. The great thing about all of this is once you master, forgiveness and master it to the point where things don't bother you anymore, you get to the point where no matter what happens, you don't react. It doesn't upset you. Once you get there and universal love comes naturally, you can nurture it a bit. I mean, this is this beautiful flower growing within you, but it's very self-reinforcing because it feels so good. You do more and more and more loving, and you want to do more and more things for other people just because that feels good. This is who we naturally are. We are natural, eternal beings who are perfect love. And we just need to basically remember who we are, because we are part of God, and God is perfect love. We just forgot a lot of stuff, and we're trying to learn it back again, and so we can grow spiritually. And there's a good reason to do that, too, because in the afterlife levels, the higher you go, the more fun you have. So if you want to really have a great afterlife, these are essential lessons, which is what Jesus told us. Yes, and I wanted to talk more about that because, and we will in the last segment too, about the afterlife of. I remember reading from somebody that it's like in the afterlife is like going to school, that there are spiritual levels to achieve in the afterlife, and a continuation of our spiritual growth. And depending on what we've done here, will depend on where we go and on those levels, so to speak, in the afterlife.
It's really based in love. The dead tell us that sin is a human construct. You can do anything, and if you do it out of love, that's not sin. On the other hand, you can spend your whole life doing things for other people, and if you do it out of a mean-spirited getting even with someone or some other negative motive, there's no merit in that at all. It's a very different way of looking at things, is the spiritual way, but it's the right way, because it's going to be how we are going to be living forever. And what's great is the growth goes on forever. So as happy as you are just to be there on the lower levels, wow, the higher you go, the more wonderful it is. It's hard to, we'll talk about some of the details, as you said, in the next segment, but people think that it's going to be somehow religious. There's no religion practiced in the afterlife levels. You don't have to practice religion even now, and you certainly don't have to practice it then. And everybody can get into heaven. I don't care whether you ever had a religion. I don't care what the religion was. There are no winners and losers in this.
Well, when you're saying that, what comes to mind is this: it's not a religion; it's just a state of being.
Yes, it's a state of being. That's right, and that's what Jesus came to teach us. He came. It's pretty clear when you sit down and actually read the whole Gospels. He was very down on religions, and was trying to teach us to relate to God privately, individually. And the reason is simple, of course, because our minds are part of God. When you put religion in between you and God, you're actually distancing yourself from God, not getting closer. And if that religion is fear-based and Christianity is very fear-based, then you're debasing your spiritual level at the same time. This is very negative, and that's not what Jesus came to do. That's not who he is. Instead, he came to teach us that if we will relate to God individually, he said, go into your room and pray in secret, and the God who hears in secret will reward you. Well, he's talking to first century people for whom the guy who prays the loudest in the synagogue is the best guy. He's just telling them that the opposite is true. But once you learn to relate to God on your own, too, that also opens up relationships, a relationship with God, relationship with your spirit guides, relationships with people on a much deeper level. I was very shallow when I was young, and the difference now, I can't begin to tell you. It's everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those are things we all strive for. If we can't deny that we're here to learn things and to embrace them in our life and to find, I think everybody wants to feel that love for themselves and for others. It's just sometimes a hard journey to get there. Well, we're going to take another break, so we'll come back and talk more about the afterlife with Roberta Grimes.
Tune in to Dynamics of Diversity Radio, scripting the new narrative for immigration with leading experts Kripa Upadhyaya and Steve Tanijo on TransformationTalkRadio.com. This show will remove the noise that often accompanies discussions on this topic and share a new perspective on the dynamics of immigration and diversity, ever reminding us that together we are all at the core of innovation, excellence, and positive change. Visit OrbitLawPLLC.com for upcoming topics.
How would you like to release your stress and let go of your anxiety, fear, depression, or even physical pain? How would you like to feel more relaxed, more confident, and experience more success in all areas of your life? Dave Dodge from Stress Buster Radio has a number of cutting-edge methods that will help you do just that. For more information on how Dave can help you release stress, visit StressBusterRadio.com. Skype and phone sessions available.
Tune in to Mainstream Metaphysics Radio to harness your connection with the universe to effect change for optimal success and happiness. Named one of the country's top psychics, Eve now brings her insights and gifts to this weekly hit call-in show, joined by visionaries, leaders, and gifted others, but mostly you. Jot it down. Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
How would you like increased health and vitality? How would you like to avoid the onset of disease as well as slow the aging process? This is all possible through a simple, safe, and natural process. Every day we are either moving toward wellness or away from wellness.
Hi, I'm Mary Jane Mack. I'd like to be your partner in achieving optimal health. Contact me now at maryjanemack.com or call 425-392-0659. Visit maryjanemack.com.
Kris Steinnes is a spiritual leader and healer and teaches a course on how you can transform your life through a meditation and healing system that will manifest your spirit's dreams. She manifested the Women of Wisdom Conference, the Women of Wisdom book, and this radio show. And she can show you how to change your life too. Are you ready? Visit the website and contact her at voicesofwomentoday.com. That's voicesofwomentoday.com.
Sky Siegel co-hosts one of today's most popular psychic shows, Angels and Answers with Artie Hoffman, as she communicates healing messages from the spirit world. These messages can be astounding, enlightening, and life-changing. Born with the God-given talent of inner guidance and the amazing ability to heal, Sky has healed thousands of people. Schedule a reading with Sky now. Call 908-500-1474 and visit skyofangels.com.
Welcome back to Voices of Women. I'm Kris Steinnes, and we're talking with the author of The Fun of Growing Forever, Roberta Grimes. So, Roberta, can you give your website address? And also, I understand you have a radio program. You could share that with our guests.
RobertaGrimes.com is my web address. If you have any questions, there's a contact block on the site, RobertaGrimes.com, and that gives me an email, and I answer every email. I used to say, if you don't hear within 24 hours, send flowers, but I get too many correspondences now. Now it's sort of, if you don't hear within 48 hours, send flowers. I love hearing from people and answering their questions. So happy to do that. And my program is called Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes, and it's available live on the BBM Global Network, but that's in Thursdays Eastern Time, 7 o'clock. But most people, I think, pick it up on webtalkradio.net or on iTunes. And again, if you listen to me and you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me. That's the best part of my day when I get to answer questions.
Okay, so that the show is called Seek Reality?
Seek Reality.
Seek Reality.
Sorry, I think I slurred it. That's what we all should be doing. I mean, reality exists, and it's all good. And so knowing that, it's very, very important that we all, in our own ways, try to understand, not just go through life like cattle without any questions, because there are answers, and the answers are all good.
Well, you're an inspiration, and just passing all this information to people, and there is in your book you give some exercises and some pointers and tips and things like that. So it's not just information like, oh, you got to forgive, you got to love. It's helping people. How do we do that? Now, do you have any one thing to share more about that, of how they tips on how they can be in the grateful state, forgiving and loving?
Well, the people I hear from who have the most trouble are either people who have had a really big tragedy in their lives happen to them, or people who have done something horrible that they can't forgive themselves for. And I have done some counseling of people in those situations. But to a certain extent, the reason people have trouble forgiving those things is they hang on to them. They've made it a part of their identity that their child was murdered, or that they did something horrible and it was a mass accident and they killed 4 people. Whatever it is, they've made it part of their identity. So letting go of this definition of themselves is part of the really almost the first thing to do. And there are ways to do it, but it's so individual. It really is something that needs counseling. One of the problems we have is that our professionals are all matter-based, because that's what science and medicine are. And in fact, matter is not what exists. It's all energy. This just seems to be more material than we imagine other areas are, although it's not more material. It's just different. But once it becomes broadly known that all of the things I'm telling you today are true, we're going to have practitioners who are able to help, counselors who understand how to help people release the need to avoid forgiving. And once that happens, it's really easy. As I say, there's no scaling in this. Everything could be forgiven, and it's no harder to forgive the worst thing than it is to forgive the smallest thing, because it's a mental reaction, and you just have to get rid of that mental reaction, and then you've already forgiven. It's gone.
Yeah, and I think there's many steps in that too, of understanding all the mental reaction and what's driving it. What's the core? There's sometimes core things, mental, in your mind or whatever that drives that. Also,
well, it's something sets you off, and you have taught your mind that when that happens, it's very bad, and you should react. I mean, I can remember it was very important. I can imagine it was very important 5,000 years ago, is that you learned whenever you saw a saber-toothed tiger, you got to get out of there. And it's the same kind of thing with your mind. Your mind is operating on a very primitive level. We give it much too much credit when we're here. But it's really, your mind is minuscule when you're here. One of the great things that happens very soon after you get back home is that your mind merges with your eternal mind, and whoa, that's a power trip, because you suddenly realize you know so much and you are so smart, and it's a really big thing when you get back into your eternal mind.
That sounds fascinating, and that leads me to want to talk more about what you have learned from the dead about the afterlife, because I know some of your books you talk about having the communication with people who have passed over and they're in the afterlife. What have you learned from them? What are they telling you, and also what are they saying about the future of our planet?
Well, let's start with that one, because I think that's a very important question. Because this is school, they have tried not to interfere with what we're doing here. We have free will. We have to have that, or we can't learn. And we've had tremendous latitude. But about 100 years ago, there began to be alarm in the upper levels of the greater reality about how negative things were getting here. And then in 1945, we exploded atomic bombs in warfare. And that apparently really set off the alarm bells. So since then, they have been working very hard to raise the consciousness of the planet, and you're working on it, and so am I. Millions of people are, in their own ways, working to make this happen, and we're doing it under the guidance of people that are not now in bodies. But my own private guide, my personal guide, has told me, quite frankly, why it's important I do this work. And that is that if we don't turn things around, we are in basically an emotional, a spiritual death spiral. And within 200 years, my guide Thomas says, there will be an end times war started by what he calls the so-called Christians, because things will be so bad on the earth that they'll try to bring the Lord back by starting the war. And it'll be bad to be there, be alive at that time, but to be alive during that war will be just intolerable. So they're trying to avoid that war. There will be no Armageddon. That's a fairy tale. But to have people try to make it come real is apparently now one of the big threats.
Mm-hmm. So that's the whole reason, for us to get on track for our spiritual growth of gratitude, forgiveness, and love.
Yeah.
And being that, and I think the wrong word with spreading it would be sort of like preaching, but just being it.
If you are it, you are teaching it.
Right.
Because people around you will want to understand, why you've got it together. And I'm teaching it all the time. Just by example, you're teaching it. And there are teachers, and there are other people who use Eastern teachings to try to get to the same, and that works. But frankly, I don't have the patience to meditate, do yoga, do any of these practices. Every other practice I've ever looked at is a process that takes a lot longer. If you sincerely follow the teachings of Jesus, it's a mechanical thing. Within 2 months, you're going to be a different person. I guarantee it.
Mm-hmm. And that's consciously being aware and following that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Roberta.
Thank you for having me here. We've had so much fun. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, so everybody check out our website, Roberta Grimes, GRIMES.com. I'm Kris Steinnes, founder of Women of Wisdom Foundation. You can check out our organization and what we're doing out there in the world at womenofwisdom.org. Also check out my book, Women of Wisdom, Empowering the Dreams and Spirit of Women. It's an inspirational book compiled from many of the talks and stories and art and poetry from the conference and from women who participated that has changed women's lives. And so the book is also it's an exploration of the divine feminine through the many voices. So I'm just pleased to be able to share that with everybody, and you can check that out at womenofwisdom.org as well. It benefits Women of Wisdom. We're a nonprofit organization. So I'm so glad to have had this hour with you today. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll be back next Friday.
You've been listening to Voices of Women with Kris Steinnes. Tune in each Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Voices of Women Today, radio with Kris Steinnes.